What is it, do you think, about your game that has people just can't wait to see you on the professional level?
I think it's just the style of basketball that I play. To be honest, I don't get nervous for games because I just know this is fun.
Shortly after yet another outstanding performance on the court, Caitlin Clark sat at the podium, ready for the usual post-game questions. However, an experienced reporter's remark completely derailed the strategy. For the first time in a long time, she was taken aback. Why are people still debating what was said? Join us as we analyze a reporter's statement that surprised Caitlin Clark. After the game, there was a media conference. The Indiana Fever had just won a pivotal game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, defeating the Connecticut Sun 75-85. Caitlin Clark set the bar with what many commentators called her best all-around game as a pro. So far, her stats seemed like they were from a video game. He scored 28 points on 11 of 18 shots in 38 minutes of action, including 6 of 10 three-pointers. In addition, he had just 2 turnovers, 5 rebounds, and 12 assists. The win put Indiana in the postseason with a few weeks left in the regular season. The press room buzzed with excitement as cameras clicked, reporters jotted down notes, and Clark answered questions with her usual calm assurance and strong energy. ESPN's Holly Rowe had just asked about Clark's growing relationship with teammate Aaliyah Boston, specifically how well they worked together on the pick and roll, which helped the team score 18 points in the paint against Las Vegas. "Our mutual trust is really growing," Clark said, grinning. "Because Aaliyah was patient with me as I adjusted to the time at this level, it felt like we were reading each other's minds tonight." She saw Stephen A. Smith sitting in the front row at that very time. He had been extremely quiet during the entire 15-minute news conference. Unusual for someone whose enormous personality and loud, passionate opinions on First Take dominate sports discussion programs. Stephen A. "Go ahead," Clark said, pointing to the well-known commentator who had covered everything from Michael Jordan to LeBron James over his long career. What was the shocking question that Stephen asked? Let's look into it. The unexpected question. Smith stood up cautiously, putting aside his big personality and dramatic gestures that had made him one of sports journalism's most well-known voices. His expression was more serious than usual, almost thoughtful, as he began to speak. His calm, steady speech changed the mood of the room. It no longer felt like a standard post-game interview. Here, there was more going on. He told Caitlin, "I've been doing this job for over 30 years. I've had conversations with thousands of athletes from every major sport. I have seen both winning and losing teams. I've conducted interviews with athletes and legends that no one can remember. I've witnessed both rookies who astounded everyone and veterans who didn't live up to expectations. But I would like to ask you a question. Since I began paying close attention to you this season, I have been considering this." There was silence in the room. Reporters paused their typing mid-sentence. Camera operators leaned in. At the back of the room, even the Fever's media reps, who were getting ready to end the session, froze. Smith continued, "I've built my entire career on being honest, even when that means being critical. I do that. It is a part of who I am. I don't hold back when I think an athlete isn't giving their best effort. I don't apologize for having high standards, but this season, I've been forced to think about how you've handled pressure, expectations, and the move from college to the professional ranks." He paused and gave himself a non-performance facial rub. It was quite sentimental. "To be honest, I owe you an apology for something I should have stated long ago." He said, "This is my question. How can you remain composed and professional when people like me treat you unfairly? I've been too critical, too quick to judge, and sometimes just plain wrong when it comes to your career path. I have to tell the truth to everyone in this room, including you. Many of us have been proven wrong by you, and you deserve far better than some of what has been said, especially what I have said." However, how did Clark respond to this? Let's take a closer look at it. Clark's startling reaction for the first time in her professional career, possibly even since high school. Caitlin Clark was at a loss for words. Suddenly, the same player who had answered challenging questions about her performance managed the tremendous pressure of becoming the most talked-about rookie in WNBA history, faced angry, boisterous crowds at Michigan State, and remained composed under the bright lights of the Final Four at Iowa was silent. She sat there, briefly opening her mouth before closing it once more. Her hands, which had been confidently moving during the press conference, were now still on the platform. Finally, she muttered, "Wow," in a weak, tremulous voice. For once, the confidence that had carried her through so many difficult moments seemed to disappear. "Stephen, I really don't know what to say to that," she said. "To be honest, I'm at a loss for words right now." The room was silent. Everyone knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. This was a very impromptu meeting in a world where media appearances are usually carefully scheduled. Even two of her teammates, Nalissa Smith and Kelsey Mitchell, who were heading to the team bus, stopped in the hallway and turned around. They had a feeling that something important was happening. After all, Clark had to start anew and try to rediscover her voice. Clearly, she was still experiencing something. Yes, it has been challenging at times, but you probably don't realize how much it means. You were ready to share what you just said when you asked me that question. The constant criticism and comparisons to my college statistics. People wondered if I could really make the move from the Big Ten to the WNBA, if I was really ready for all of this, and if the fanfare was over the top. She paused, took a big breath, and seemed to relax. But you know what? All of that criticism pushed me. As a result, I worked harder at the gym. As a result, I watched more films. It made me prove to both myself and other people that I belong here, that I can be the kind of player and teammate this league deserves, and that my fans were correct. Then she looked up again, speaking more steadily. "Hearing you admit that maybe some of the first criticism wasn't fair is overwhelming, but in the best way." Two of Clark's colleagues, Aaliyah Boston and Erica Wheeler, were now standing at the back of the room, clearly moved by what was taking place in front of the entire sports media. "But this is what I've discovered since then," Smith continued, his voice growing louder and more passionate. "You are now averaging 19 in your rookie season, 5 and 8 points for assists per game. Diana Taurasi, on the other hand, averaged 17 points and 4. During her debut season, she contributed 4 assists. Subbard received a score of 14 for points and gave out 9 assists. Based on your stats, you're having one of the best rookie seasons ever." Rather than appearing to be performing for the cameras, the way he met Caitlin Clark's gaze was personal. Statistics, however, don't give a full picture. You have probably increased awareness of women's basketball more than in decades. League attendance rises by 48% when your team travels. The number of individuals that watch Indiana Fever games on TV has increased threefold. Sales of your jersey have surged by more than 200%. But it's not only about the money and the media. It's about you. How you lead, how you handle pressure, how you acknowledge your colleagues, and how you've helped everyone around you. Smith's voice was now quite emotional. "I was wrong about you, Caitlin. I thought you weren't ready, but I was wrong. Saying that you weren't deserving of the attention was a mistake. I assessed you using outdated criteria since I was unable to see what was in front of me. You're not only a superb novice, you're changing the game of women's basketball. For that, I truly apologize to you, the league, and my audience." So, what was the reaction in the conference room? Let's investigate it. The room's response. The press room had never come to life, even for the most experienced basketball journalists. Cameras flashed as photographers tried to record every second of Caitlin Clark's emotional reaction. Other reporters began typing and taping as soon as they realized they were witnessing a historic event. Reputable ESPN reporter Holly Rowe, who had covered numerous touching incidents throughout her career, was clearly moved. She wiped away her tears with a tissue and kept taking notes. Adrian Woroski, who is well known for his cool reporting on big NBA news, pulled out his phone and began recording, realizing that this was an extremely important moment. Sue Bird, a special ESPN analyst at the event, stood up and started cheering. Her gesture encouraged others to do the same. The first team to join in was ESPN. Then more reporters arrived, including a few Indiana Fever staff members who had gathered to see this surprising development. Fever teammate Aaliyah Boston came over to the platform and gently touched Clark's shoulder. A quiet but powerful way to show support. The gesture seemed to help Clark stay balanced as she stood in front of multiple reporters and cameras, still trying to digest everything. She then made a statement. Her voice had stabilized. She said, "Stephen A., you don't have to apologize to me. Sports media should challenge us. Holding players accountable and posing difficult questions are intended to be hard. What matters most to me is your readiness to change your mind when new knowledge makes you think otherwise. For that, genuine strength and honesty are necessary." Reporters, some of whom had publicly chastised her during her challenging professional debut, were staring at her as she looked across the room. She continued, saying, "To be honest, that criticism helped me. It pushed me. It made me work harder to convince myself, rather than simply fans or reporters, that I belong here, that I can compete and achieve at this level, that I can handle the transition from college to the pros, and maybe even master it." The subject of discussion shifted after that. Adrian Wojnarowski, who had been watching and shooting in silence, raised his hand and asked a thoughtful question. Referring back to Stephen A.'s statement that we should reconsider how we cover events, how do you believe the media has changed its coverage of women's basketball since you joined the league? He questioned Caitlin. "What do you think will happen next?" Clark thought about his answer for a bit. She answered, "I think we've definitely gotten more attention. This is wonderful not only for me, but also for the young girls who look up to us and the stunning ladies who have been building this league for years. But more attention also means more pressure, which is acceptable as long as the criticism is fair and based on facts." She turned to face Stephen A., who was still standing and focused intently. "I think Stephen A.'s present growth is great. He is willing to listen and learn. Covering women's sports in the same manner as men's is insufficient. This is something new and important, and it needs to be understood in its own context." Rebecca Lobo, another ESPN commentator and former WNBA player, contributed to the conversation about the unique opportunities and challenges that come with being